Welcome to Go For Side Effects. I'm your host, Kevin Simon, and y'all know my co-host, Wade. How you doing?
How's it going, man?
And we all know Wade was in the Army. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to bring that up, the Army-Navy game every time. And we brought back Paul with the Air Force, which we told y'all in the earlier ones that we wanted to discuss tonight about missiles that Saddam used on us and what was inside. And so we're going to get a little technical here. I'm not going to have all the answers, but Paul will have all the answers for us. So, Paul, give a little bit of background real quick again, and then let's get into the missiles.
Sure. I was in the Air Force. I worked in intelligence. I was in from 89 to 95. During Desert Storm, I was with the B-52s and KC-135s out of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. We were the only B-52 unit in country. And the reason for that is the Saudis did not want any offensive weapons in country until the war started. Your tanks, your fighter jets, everything in the world can be put in a defensive posture. The only thing that is traditionally not a defensive posture is a bomber. So we get in country months before the war starts. We have no physical planes. And then all of a sudden at, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, all these planes take off from Michigan. They hit targets over Baghdad, and they landed our base in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And that's how we started the war.
Man, I'll tell you what, man. I remember that night when the missiles were taking off and jets were taking off. It was just something. Yeah, it was like the 4th of July.
It was eerie.
Yeah, it was an eerie feeling. It was So the missiles, when we were over there, a lot of the topics are what type of missiles that they use, and did they have sarin, mustard, radioactive, any of that stuff. So let's kind of get into some of that. So what type of missiles, did Saddam use?
There were a very few different types, very few. The big label is Scud missiles. And then there were 2 different types of Scud missiles that had 2 different ranges. Some of them could go, I want to say 60 kilometers, and some of them could go 300 kilometers. So the shorter ranged ones, they moved into the Kuwaiti theater of operation in November, December of 90. And one of the big pieces to that information that's what was going on was, more importantly, they were moving decontamination capability. Then they would move the Scuds. At the end of the day, I don't care if you're the Iraqis or if you're us, if you're going to start moving chemical weapons around, what if you have an accident? What if you have a leak? You got to decontaminate your troops. So they would typically forward deploy decontamination locations in preparation for the Scuds showing up that had, sarin gas or VX gas in them. And that became a very quick, very easy tell, if you will, as to they were kind of broadcasting their maneuvers or what they were planning on doing. There were tons, and I mean tons of rumored that there were chemical weapons in the mines, the landmines. Now, I've never seen anything that said that to that effect. I know that there's a number of Marine and Army men and women who were like, yep, we hit some minefields and all of a sudden all of our sensors went off. I would believe that story. I just, for my own edification, if you will, I don't know that story is a true story because we only ever knew it as rumors.
Right. And so this brings me to this question, and maybe Wade can kind of, answer a little bit more on this because Camisea with everything being blown up. Okay, so when we were over there, I did hear about the landmines maybe having sarin gas, and I never heard about mustard. So maybe y'all two can just ask me, did y'all ever see anything where there was anthrax?
No.
So why the hell did we have to take anthrax shot?
I have an opinion on that. I don't have fact.
We like opinion.
Yeah, I like opinions.
So my opinion on the anthrax shot is that we didn't know. I don't believe there was some grand conspiracy. I don't think this is some CIA, MK Ultra, blah, blah, blah. I'm not one to kind of go down that path on this topic, maybe on other topics, but not on this one. I think that we knew for a fact that Saddam Hussein had chemical and possible biological weapons. I also believe we knew that for a fact because we sold them to him.
Right.
In
correct.
84 and 85. So there's a defense contractor. And as soon as I think about it, I just lost the name. A massive defense contractor, Carlyle Group. The Carlyle Group. Somebody fact check me if you want, but the Carlyle Group shipped all sorts of chemical and biological weapons over to Saddam Hussein in the mid 80s because he was losing the war with Iraq. We also gave Iraq IHawk surface-to-air missiles that they ended up using against us in Desert Storm. So we gave them a lot of capabilities, a lot of technology, a lot of stuff, even the ability to make some of these chemical weapons, some of the laboratory capabilities. And I really believe that. I have read books by guys who were in Iraqi freedom, who were a part of the, super cosmic top secret units to go find these weapons, and they found them. And the serial numbers and the invoices all came back to the United States. I believe it's a very ugly part of America. I believe we gave them to Saddam Hussein in the 80s. Lord knows in return for what? Is it for oil? Is it, I don't know. But
we do know also, though, on top of that, it wasn't just us who gave them some. United Kingdom, UAE,
yes,
I believe Jordan. It was several countries.
Yep.
And I mean, this is educational purposes only, YouTube and Facebook. So,
Yeah.
But I mean, over there, we all took anthrax shot, P-tabs. We took all this stuff. So when the missiles were hitting, do we have any, data or, that will show what type of missiles hit with what inside?
Yes. I'm looking at a report right now. It's a 9-page report, came out in 1996. It's been declassified, obviously, and it leads up to all the steps in Desert Shield going back to September of 1990. Defense Intelligence Agency second chemical decontamination site identified in September of 1990. Once again, you don't move chemical or biological weapons without decontamination sites. It's just stupid. Let's just be honest. So, because when you move them, hey, no matter how good we are, we know things happen, right? Stuff falls off, stuff gets punctured. You don't want to lose 20, 30, 40, 50 of your people because of an accident. You didn't have a decontamination location.
Right.
Also, very accurate reports of artillery shells with chemical weapons in them, and very accurate reports of RPGs with chemicals in the warhead. Never saw a whole lot about mines, though. I think the mines were honestly Iraqi intelligence trying to scare our troops, going, hey, they've got 5 million mines out there, and let's not touch those mines because they got chemicals in them. Little did they know that we knew how to handle that minefield situation.
Wade, what do you have to? What do you think of? Because you were like right there in it. And
No,
so,
I totally agree. I think, like you said, given the anthrax injection, I think that was more of a CYA, unknown. That's what I could say. When we took our anthrax, we were up on the border preparing probably within days of crossing, and there wasn't enough anthrax to go around. Squad leaders and above and vital personnel. So not everybody got it. So, and it's at the time it was a 2-series shot, and the ones who did get it only got 1 shot. So What good did it do? No clue. What would 1 shot make you sick? No clue. So, I mean, would it protect you? Obviously, I don't think it would have. So,
And I think though over there with 40,000 chemical detection alarms, it's mysteriously all malfunctioned.
well, what were
Find that
those
a little
units? What
funny.
were those vehicles called that could actually pinpoint what the actual chemical was?
Were
It
those?
was
Go ahead.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Wasn't it the? It wasn't the Bradley. It was the. But I thought they said they had a chemical detection thing that could that it was precise also inside the Bradley. I was.
It
told.
was an M256 kit.
Well, I'm saying the actual vehicle that was the whole job was that vehicle's job, and the crew members inside, they were the chemical detection teams, and they were the ones that actually detected mustard agent.
Fox
vehicle. That sounds
Fox
right.
vehicle.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, John Schwartz.
No, yeah. Thanks, Jason. And yeah, the Fox vehicles could detect. And so when the missiles were sitting there hitting, darn well that something had to be inside sarin gas. I do believe that they detected a lot of mustard gas inside the Fox vehicles. From what they testified in front of Congress.
Yeah, it's the Fox vehicle, the NBC reconnaissance vehicle. It looks a little bit like an up-armored APC.
Right.
Yeah.
With a lot of buttons.
Something, Paul, that we Kevin and I were discussing. It's just something I came across actually last week. But had you heard something about like Russian doctrine was to actually mix chemical and biologicals together into one warhead? And
yes.
Did you ever see any evidence of that, or was there fear that was going to happen?
There was very real fear. Number one, because I don't know how much. Well, it doesn't matter anymore. A biological weapon, there's no defense to it. Your mop gear is not protecting you from a biological weapon. Okay. That's all BS that we were told. If there's a biological weapon, think about like little termites or something. I mean, talking nano-sized viruses. I hate to say it, but think COVID, right? Not
right.
That kind of, you're not filtering COVID out. Remember that, right? The masks, the N95 masks, come to find out none of that works. The only way to filter COVID out is to basically be in a self-contained breathing bunny suit.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
That's a biologic.
That's true. That's a good analogy.
Biologic. So there's no way these not crappy, but these charcoal filters that we had on the side. I mean, we had some of the newer gas masks that were all one pane.
Yeah.
Right? But even if you had the dual ones where you had these charcoal masks were designed for nuclear. You're not going to filter out biological. And the particulate size of chemical can be so small, you're not going to filter that out. So I believed we were misled, for lack of a better word. Again, maybe not intentionally, but hey, they got NBC weapons. Great. Give them MOP 4 gear. And we all just accepted that.
So you're saying that the atropine injectors wouldn't have worked either?
I'm glad I didn't have to find out. Man, I didn't have to figure that out.
It's so funny because, we sit back and, and it's good to be able to laugh about this. Because, I mean, if we really knew everything that we were hit with, we would be in a corner of a room crying. You got to take every day, like it's your last and enjoy it, man. That's how I look at it. And that's why, there's things out there that detox you, but it doesn't fully detox you. That's how I kind of feel about it. I don't believe everything. If they had something that can fully detox us, they would have already done it and sent us on our way. But without knowing what it was, how can they detox us?
That's a really good point. I think you're right. I mean, it doesn't take longer than 5 seconds for anybody to research this stuff and become an expert on it. These M256 kits, they were state of the art then, and we still use them today.
But yet they were.
Well, I was just going to say, are we still training the same way today for NBC training and you know, like your, you know, frontline infantry type fighters? Are we still training the same NBC type training today as we did back then? Going to Mach 4, using your atropine injectors. Are we still doing that today?
Like, you know they are.
They probably are. You know, I mean, I should ask. You know,
I was on.
I know several young kids in the Army today. I didn't even think to ask them, but that would be a good question for the kids.
So the big thing. Think about this from. Sorry, Wade. Don't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, absolutely.
From the Army point of view, right? You guys go to basic training. You guys walk through the what the hell thing it is where they hit you with the gas.
Oh, CS gas.
Oh yeah.
CS gas. Okay. Well, what's CS gas? What does the CS mean?
I don't know what is CS. All I know is it cleared my sinuses for a long time.
Okay.
Clearing sinuses. That's CS.
So serious. But think about that for a minute. Very watered down because they're not going to hurt you with it.
Yep.
It's been tested 1 million times, 10 million times, whatever. And it damn near brings you to your knees. Okay. So if this was really a chemical weapon or a biological weapon, there is, in my opinion, very little way to actually filter that out.
But I agree with that. I agree with that.
At the end of the day, Saddam Hussein was willing to do whatever it took to win that war. I mean, I don't know, about early February, we were getting a lot of intelligence reports that the reason why he put the Republican Guard, if you can think of the country of Kuwait, there's like a little slope on the backside.
Yeah.
He put all the Republican Guard troops in Iraq facing Kuwait and facing Saudi Arabia because he knew that if anybody retreated, they'd run into the Republican Guard, and Republican Guard would kill the troops. I mean, most of these guys, not most, a lot of the people in the Iraqi army were getting recruited and being given AK-47 training and go that way. You know, it's a really crazy thing when you start to pull it all apart.
But here's my thought process, Paul. Here's my thought process. So right after, and you know, everybody, you know, I know with George W. Bush Jr., the weapons of mass destruction, everybody was really upset about, oh, there was none. You look right after Desert Storm, what he did to his own people in that country. He literally gassed and killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Sure did.
And so don't, you know, for me, because I'm just going to say this. There was a guy that walked into the barbershop that decided to pick a fight about there was no chemical warfare and used during Desert Storm in the Gulf War. And I was like, okay, so let me go ahead and get this straight. So you know more than what the DOD does, the VA, and every detection out there.
And UN inspectors, months after the war was over, that produced classified UN reports to what really was going on.
Right. And then, in the other hand, you also had Iran also lobbing missiles towards ships out there. Who knows what was in them things? And so that's what I'm saying. We had so much out there that, I mean, my theory would be if they were moving the chemical warfare and if they were mixing the biological and the chemical together, I'm telling you, I can see why they can't figure out what the hell is going on with us.
I think we've got a situation, my opinion only, where there's so much going on with, 560,000 U.S. servicemen, something like that, right?
Right.
You know, someone's going to say, well, it's 562,000, whatever the number was, 500,000 troops. All of us have some kind of a health condition. And the VA is sitting there going, okay, 30%, whatever the number is, a high percentage of us had the same health condition with no actual explanation. No smoking gun, no Agent Orange, no Agent White, no Agent Blue, no Agent Purple, nothing
Right.
to specifically point to. So what that does is it creates, in my mind, a little bit of a boogeyman called chemical weapons. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
right.
Now, I mean, I hate to say this, but I'm running out of conspiracy theories because they're all coming true,
Right. And
I don't know what not to believe anymore because, anyways.
I agree with that. That's a great statement. I mean, if you look at every single thing that the vets have, we usually one or two people, more than one or two people have the exact same stuff. I mean, I know a lot of the Navy guys, we all have the exact same stuff compared to what the Army, they have pretty much all the exact same stuff. The Air Force probably got a mixture of both, and I think it determines where you were is how much you were exposed to.
So I agree. Good friend of mine was in the Marine Corps, and Task Force Ripper, I think, is what he was a part of, which was one of the very first or leading edge Marine units, blah, blah, blah. And he said, Paul, we were blowing so much stuff up. We don't even know. We had more firepower. We knew what to do with. If somebody fired one round at us, we unloaded thousands of rounds. I said, yeah, it's a war. But what I really believe is we're trying to give credit to something ambiguous as Gulf War illness and now burn pits almost as a smoke screen for chemical weapons.
Well, right. That's something that Kevin and I all go round and round. I say round and roundabout. As all this has progressed and post 9/11 veterans, have started getting sick of, from burn pits. I've posted on the show, what are out in the field, what a burn pit was, which consisted of approximately a 6-foot hole in the desert that we're throwing MRE boxes in and letters from home, burning them. I've had bigger bonfires. That was our burn pit.
Right.
So, but then now we're overshadowed by what a real burn pit from post 9/11 times, what those veterans went through. And now, again, we're getting pushed to the rear. And again, chemicals is not even brought into the mix. Desert Storm veterans are not even brought into the mix.
That's what pisses me off. That's what pisses me off right there.
Right.
The PACT
Everybody thinks this whole PACT Act was such a great and wonderful endeavor. Well, that's great. But again, Desert Storm gets pushed to the rear. And post 9/11, they deserve everything that they get, especially according to the real burn pits. But again, Desert Storm forgotten and pushed to the rear again, because like you said, and I'm not like trying to correct numbers. If I remember right, I want to say it was like 710,000, but I could be wrong.
Sure, whatever the number is, right? Yeah, that's not the point. It's 500,000 or more.
Right, and you look at the overall loss of life in country. One's too many, but it was a low casualty number overall for any conflict, the lowest in history, I believe. So again, we are essentially, if you will, the stepchildren of American battles, American wars, and we are just being overlooked.
Oh no, that's great. I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
I think this is how many Korean War veterans felt.
Absolutely, damn straight, absolutely.
A real parallel or an integration point, whatever you want to call it. The Korean War veterans probably felt very much the same way.
Well, if you look at, so one day I forgot, I want to say it was one of the presidents got up there and talked about every war, and he never said Desert Storm. He said Iraqi freedom.
You know what's crazy, gentlemen? I don't want to sound a certain way, but it's the last war this country won.
Right? I mean,
I don't want to sound a certain way about it, but it's the last war this country won. We tied. We lost Vietnam. We lost Iraq. We lost Afghanistan.
Another thing that I brought up to Kevin, we talked before, was Lloyd Austin, the former Secretary of Defense, right?
Yep.
So he was in my battalion during Desert Storm.
Okay.
And then I served under him once we came home. But my question is, at the time of him serving in Desert Storm, obviously at his rank, obviously being an officer rank, he wouldn't have known at the higher level. But now, at the Secretary of Defense, former, he would have that information now. Now, why can't somebody call upon him to tell the tale?
So I don't know the answer to that, but I have some theories. And the theory is that there are too many people alive today who know the truth, and the truth is damning to too many influential people.
I agree with that.
I'd buy that.
I'll buy that.
The reason why I believe that was because of something Trump did. In his first administration, it was all, we're going to release the JFK files, And then when it came time to release them, he said there are too many people that are still alive that could be impacted by the disclosure of the information. Okay, so in 2018, if you're still alive and you had a part in the JFK assassination, that was 60 years ago. You're probably 80 realistically, right? Just work with me on a little bit of math.
Right.
You're 25 years old and you're somehow tied up into the JFK assassination. 60 years later, you're now 85 years old.
Yep.
Okay. Guess who died in December of 2018? Papa Bush.
I was going to say, Bush Sr.
Guess who never has ever said where he was that weekend? Papa Bush. Guess what Trump is saying now? We're going to do it again. I do believe there are legacy things like that if some of this stuff got disclosed, we Gulf War veterans would riot on Washington.
The thing about it is that's, to me, that is the problem. Yep. There is every veteran that sits out there, that even the veteran groups that I posted in, they just, I've been cut off, I've been blocked because I put about the podcast up there. Like, there is no difference between our war than what y'all's war was. Be honest with you, every war, there is some type of thing that government has done that they're hiding from us. And I truly believe that.
I don't want to ever get into a conversation with a fellow veteran about my war versus theirs.
No, absolutely not.
You know what I mean? Everyone, right? And I'm not saying you guys are, or we are.
Right. No, right.
But the thing I think about with the burn pits, it was an easy scapegoat for chemical weapons, for biological weapons, for contaminated water at hundreds of bases stateside, which the DOD or the VA has not gone with presumptives on that. I really believe there were other contaminants other than burn pits.
Right.
That we were exposed to, whether it's the anthrax shot or Lord knows what other shot they stuck into my backside that was not FDA approved.
No, right. And I believe, to me, and this is a belief I have. This is my belief, everybody. Y'all don't have to believe it or not. I believe we were the test dummies of what's going on with America today. All the all the illnesses, all the sicknesses, and everybody getting fibromyalgia now, everybody getting, neuropathy. And I do believe that. I believe that somewhere down the line, we were the guinea pigs for it. And I feel bad for the Afghanistan veterans because we don't know what they were all exposed to over there.
There's one of the bases over in Afghanistan that used to be a Soviet base, or maybe it was in Kazakhstan. There's some base over there that was just littered with chemical weapons, and we took the base over, and now the VA is like, oh, we're going to have a special presumption for those of you who were stationed here, because the Soviets contaminated the base so much so with chemical, nuclear, and biological weapons. I don't believe that our legislators want to know the full price of going to war.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Bernie Sanders, but I will quote Bernie Sanders when he said, "The price of going to war is taking care of our veterans when they come home."
I've heard him say that.
If
Yep.
you don't bake that into the price of going to war, then you can't afford to go.
Yep.
And I love that. I love that.
I think it's a spot on talking point from Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. And you know, and that's the one thing that I try to make clear to each and every person out there. We are not political. I'm equally hating both sides. I mean,
yeah, unbiased hatred, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I want people in there that's going to take care of us. That I mean, I want to take care of the world, but I want to take care of us. I want to take care of the vets that are homeless right now. I want to take and for many years we're still not getting answers. I want answers. I offered Doug Collins, hey, please come on show. I'm not going to ask difficult questions. I'm not going to be rude. That's not what this is about. We just want answers, and maybe if there's a way to prolong our life, is that a good way of saying it? To prolong it and live comfortable.
One of the things, I was talking to a gentleman, he's a retired chemical engineer. He was an Air Force officer, and he's very much in tune with all the chemicals in our bodies and whatnot. And he said, the interesting thing is, Paul, it's not like you can go down to the hospital and get an oil change. They put 7 new quarts of blood into your body.
Oh my God. You know, wouldn't that be great though?
So he said the irony is not irony, but the interesting point of that topic is that women have less chemical effects than men do because of the monthly menstrual cycle.
Makes sense.
And I didn't, so if we're talking just about blood, because I'll be honest with you, gentlemen, about 3-4 years ago, I called every place I could. I live in Kansas City. I called every place I could. I called places in Denver, Dallas, you name it. I'm like, can I get like some black market, blood oil change thing going on here? I'll pay somebody $1,000 to, I'll go collect the blood. I'll just, get a phlebotomist and pump that. And they're all going, buddy, you're crazy. But again, to even endorse something like that means that we were hit with something so horrific, they have to replace our blood.
Right. And here's another thing. So maybe a lot of people out there can answer this that's listening to the program. Answer one thing. Stem cell research has been done and it has improved so many people's lives, but it costs so much money. But why doesn't the VA provide that for people who are suffering with fibromyalgia? I mean, I know they use stem cell even for like leukemia. Why doesn't the VA provide that? That's the stuff that, if I can get it at, the best hospital in the United States gives it out to people with insurance. Why shouldn't we be able to have that? And, and so that's why I tell everybody, man, I like holistic, I take my Lyrica, I take my stuff, but I just want everybody out there to understand that a good diet, keeping healthy, exercising, right now, that's what's going to prolong us. And, vitamins, good vitamins, real vitamins. I'm going to say it like that. Just don't go off to any, drugstore and think that you're going to get the right vitamin.
Well, I had a comment but what Paul was saying earlier about, or you, Kevin, was saying about being guinea pigs. Like Paul from the Air Force, what can you think of? I mean, I can think of a couple things off the top of my head, but what can you think of that Desert Storm was the first time that we used it?
A lot of it's going to be laser guided bombs.
Wasn't it the first time that the B-2 bomber was in use?
I don't think we had the B-2 bomber at the time. I think that was still in development.
Didn't we had a fighter, didn't we? Which one?
The 117, the stealth fighter 117. The irony about your statement is I have firmly believed, so the F-111, right? The Air Force F-111's got the swept wings. It was the first ever platform to drop laser guided bombs.
Right.
When did it do it? In Vietnam. We were dropping laser guided bombs in Vietnam. There were 12 F-111s sent to Vietnam. Now, the F-111, one of its claims to fame is terrain following radar. You can set the radar at 300 feet, and that plane will fly 300 miles an hour, 300 feet off the deck. Okay, 500 feet. You can set it. It's called nape of the earth. Okay. The problem that happened in Vietnam was it didn't pick up the jungle, and they crashed 3 of the 12. Like in 5 weeks, they sent them all back to the States. This doesn't work over here. Same thing happened in Desert Shield. An F-111 didn't see the sand because it lacked density. That's why our tanks sank. Wade, you may recall Humvees like sinking a quarter or a half inch. The sand was different. It was very porous.
And then wait till it rains.
I was just going to say, and then God forbid when it rains. So we had to alter all sorts of things because of the environment over there. We've never used cluster bombs. Are you guys familiar with what cluster bombs are?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Sorry. We'd never used cluster bombs before. Very rarely had we ever used fuel air incendiary devices, which is a very polite way to say the current version of napalm. Now, in the Air Force, we had the job, in a lot of cases, to drop laser-guided munitions into these chemical facilities. Great, you blow the facility up, but you create this massive cloud then of the chemicals, or the chemicals that make up the chemical weapon, right? Benzene, TCl, whatever, right? So our job was to time 10 to 15 seconds after the first laser-guided bomb goes into the facility to allow the plume to start, and then drop these fuel air incendiary bombs that have a altimeter in it that goes down to 50 feet or 500 feet and blows out chemicals, blows out fuel, which lights the oxygen on fire that's in the air. That was how we were getting rid of chemical factories that were exploding. So boom, laser guided bomb goes, blows it up, right? Now you got this big plume of chemicals. The belief was we could burn those chemicals out of the air with fuel air incendiary devices. So we had B-52s following F-117s, following F-111s, following F-15s, hitting high priority targets. And we had to get bombs on target 15 to 20 seconds later that would essentially light the air on fire. Now, pretty cool, pretty amazing, but we had a number of Iraqi POWs who survived that, luckily, and they said that the air in their lungs would immediately catch on fire. Dang. We would not only suffocate them, but burn them from the inside while they're suffocating. That's just how nasty that shit is. But that was our modus operandi. That was our MO. Hey, we got 117s. We're going to go hit Talil Airfield. We know there's a bunch of CX gas canisters up there. Okay, great. We got to have 3 B-52s coming in behind them. We're going to drop as much fuel air incendiary bombs as possible. And think about, you just have this mist that goes out into the atmosphere at 500 feet, 400 feet, 300 feet, and then all of a sudden you light it on fire and big fireball.
Well, I mean, they didn't do that with Camisea, though.
No.
I understand. I understand.
And now here's the last point before we go into that show. Oil well fires. I know that's not a missile, people, but I honestly believe Saddam could have, when he lit them and blew them up, he could have put sarin gas in that when he blew them all up, when he caught them on fire.
I mean, anything's possible. One of the things people, I think, forget about Saddam Hussein is he ruled Iraq for 30 plus years. There were Sunnis, Shias, and Kurds, and he was none of them. Right? He may have had a lineage to one of those, right, but he kept the country really tight, brutal, all the rest. He was not a fool. He knew that we started playing around with TV guided bombs. He was watching those briefings Schwarzkopf was doing. How do you screw up a TV guided bomb? Smoke. How do you screw up a laser guided bomb? A laser is a piece of light that's focused. Okay, even the little lasers we have today, laser pointers at the fucking chalkboard or whatever, You go to a little bonfire and you point that laser through smoke, the laser dissipates. The light is no longer in sync. He was not a stupid person. He was mean, horrible. We didn't like him, but he was no dum-dum. So he knew that we had technology he could not defeat. So then he went old school and said, well, we're going to make it to where you can't see. And it worked. You know, I think those oil wells were his last-ditch effort to create one of the largest economic problems and ecological problems by dumping millions of barrels into the sea.
Yeah, let's don't get into that, because I just realized 3 weeks ago we were drinking that. I was like, what? You know, I mean, I never once ever thought that in a million years of anything about drinking, you know, the ocean water when they purify it and everything. And that boiler tech was like, oh yeah, you know, you drink petroleum. I'm like, oh man, that just blew my mind. But I want to thank everybody for listening. Paul, thank you so much for coming back on.
No problem.
When we need expert advice on this kind of information, I want to be able to contact you and get you on. And Wade, also thank you for coming on. And everybody sees where I have it scrolling across is the legacy study. We have it in our bio on Facebook. It's in all of our details. Y'all go sign up for that. It's with Nova, and you know, it's a great research program. And I you know, it's all virtual. So, I mean, it's not going to hurt y'all to do something virtual. Remember, we're doing this for our children. If y'all need to contact me, I'll put it up here today. But if y'all want to contact me, and if you want to come on the show, you know, just go to Kevin Simon at go4sideeffects.com. Y'all contact me there. Contact me on Facebook, YouTube. I try to get to YouTube as much as possible. I hope, you know, every single person over there, like, you know, when I comment on there, you know, I try to get to everybody I can. But, you know, we're looking for people to come on the show. Come tell your story. Come tell us what you did over there. Let's talk about it. And so I want to thank each and every person for, you know, listening tonight. And, you know, this was badass. I really enjoyed this. And, you know, I learned a lot. And I think a lot of people are learning a lot, you know, by listening to what the expert Paul and Wade are compared to what I am, because, you know, you know, us Navy guys, we're out in the ocean.
Oh, Paul's the intel guy, man.
Yeah, he's the intel guy, man. Yeah, he is. He's very informative.
Sometimes people ask me about, you know, that and this whole, there's these two myths, right? Either military intelligence is idiots or we can't talk about anything. One of the things I was fortunate enough to be a part of is we used to call it the intelligence wheel. And there were all these spokes that came in. There was electronic intelligence, signal intelligence, imagery intelligence, human intelligence, all these different things that fed into the intelligence world. And I was fortunate enough to be at the hub, if you can imagine a wheel with like 5 or 6 spokes, right? All of that had to come somewhere to be fused together, processed, analyzed, synthesized. And one of the scariest things I learned about the analyzation process is more times than not, the first reports are the most accurate.
Wow, that's incredible.
So now, if your listeners are still with us,
they're with us.
More often than not, the first reports of a crisis are the most accurate. Take that logic and go back and look at the Oklahoma City bombing. What were the first reports? 2 bombs. Okay. Then a day later, University of Oklahoma has seismographs that are going off, and they're saying that was the second bomb. We can show you the seismograph for the first bomb, and here's the seismograph for the second bomb. Nobody listened, and those first reports got buried because nobody wanted to talk about a second bomb. Was it real? Was it investigated? I believe when the 3 of us experience something, then we get together and talk about it. Wade, did you see that? My God, that was orange. No, Paul, that was red. You're colorblind. That shit was 10 stories. Paul, I'm from New York City. I know how high 10 story is. You're from Kansas. You can talk about a silo of corn before you can talk about a 10-foot stall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
You're
I
going
agree with that.
me to change my story from it was 100 stories tall and it was orange to 10 stories and it was red, almost without realizing that. Now, some people will try to convince us the first reports are the most invalid. And I don't agree with that. That's not been my experience. We got a question here, I guess.
Yeah. Everybody's asking me to show Christie's up here. What do you think? We'll do a real quick answer on. I don't have an answer for this one, but what do you think of the drawdown where they were trying to get rid of sick soldiers?
At the end of the day, at the end of every war, doesn't matter which war it was, whether it was ours or Vietnam, they always draw down the military. We remember 92, 93, 94, all the early outs. You could get $100,000, I can't remember, SS, whatever it was called, right? It always happens after a war. Likewise, I do think they're trying to get rid of sick soldiers because we're expensive.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I totally agree 100%.
Expensive. One of the things, and I don't want to get too deep into this because it's such a political lightning rod, but I'd not heard this until a few weeks ago. If you have a chronic disease, you can't be deployed. If you have a disease, you need to take a pill for every day or a shot or whatever the case may be. You're then combat ineffective. And wait, I see kind of the gears. You're like, okay. Right? So if I'm 21 years old and I have high blood pressure and I'm taking high blood pressure medicine, are they going to ship me overseas with 6 months worth of high blood pressure medicine? Because there sure hell isn't a pharmacy.
No, that's a good point.
Right.
That's great.
So we're expensive. Now,
great point.
You take that logic of money and you start to look at soldiers as we had gotten older. Bad knees, bad back, bad hearing. The number one recruiting element for the U.S. military is family members talking to their younger brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews to go join the military because look what it did for me.
Yep.
That is literally starting to evaporate because, hey, look at Uncle Paul. He had to get VA disability because he ate chemical weapons in the Gulf War. Hey, look at my buddy Kevin, my buddy's dad, Kevin, look at him. Or, man, I go to church with this guy, Wade, man, you know, he talks about how great the Army is, but man, he's kind of goofed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? So what's happening is our generation is now the greatest recruiting tool for the military. And here we are trying to raise the red flag or raise the alarm going. Hang on a second. I did not sign up to get exposed to chemicals that could impact my wife or my daughters. That is my greatest fear about what we were exposed to. I signed up to go to war. I signed up voluntarily if war came.
Right.
Okay. We did that. My wife didn't do it. My two daughters didn't do that. But what if in some way, shape, or form, there's something in my blood or whatever, and I'm able to unfortunately contaminate my wife? Or if I've passed damaged genes in some way to my daughters. They didn't volunteer for the military. They didn't volunteer to go to new and interesting countries, meet new and interesting people, and learn to kill them. No, they didn't.
Right.
So to me, that is what scares me the most is how could this potentially impact my family?
Right. For generations to come. That's how I feel. 100%.
That's why I went after my VA benefits. That's why I wouldn't stop until I felt the validation of the VA saying, yes, Paul, you have this health disease because of this exposure.
I agree.
And I don't know that there's some grand conspiracy, but I wouldn't doubt that pharmaceutical companies is telling the DOD, hey, yeah, here's an anthrax feed. Let's see what the hell it does to these guys. Yeah, it's fine. Right. And, some biopharmatech companies like, yeah, tell them it'll work great. Yeah, it works great on rats. What's wrong with a 19-year-old in the Army?
No, right. No, I agree with you.
Or a 19-year-old in the Air Force.
And I know we went a little bit longer, but that was beautifully said. I couldn't said that any better. So now we're going to go into the after show. Thank y'all for listening. And once again, y'all go check out our legacy study with Nova and contact me. It's cross screen, Kevin Simon at go4sideeffects.com. Thank y'all for coming on. And we're going to go into the after show, guys.
All right.